others. For instance, today Luke Timm is going to be here. Luke and I are, we're not cut from the same cloth at all. We are not twin sons of different mothers. He and I are quite different, and I'm not sure where the, no, I do know. We both love Jesus. We respect organized religion, and we enjoy studying the Word. We both like people and can be tolerant, Frank, of people who are different than we are. Beyond that, I don't know if we have a lot in common. He likes to kill things, and I don't. He's got a sailor's mouth, and I don't. He likes to yell at people, and I don't. Politically, we aren't alike at all. In fact, I'd be surprised if he caucused Republican. I really would. I bet he'd.
I think he said he was reluctantly going to support Rand Paul because it was a suggestion by a friend of his.
That's right, one of his congregation. That's right, man. I tell you what, it is scary that Frank has this memory that he has. Frank, you should start drinking alcohol or something.
Listen, I burn up too many brain cells as it is back in the day.
Well, anyway, so we're going to have a little conversation today about some political situation. Not politics. Well, I guess it is politics. I don't know what it is. We started this conversation about the University of Iowa being forced by the Muslim students to create a different prayer room because they said they couldn't worship in the same room where Christians worshiped. Not at the same time. I mean, that would make sense. Anytime in the same room. And I had a nice long talk with my friend Mike Ahmed today. Mike is an Egyptian man who fled the country when Anwar Sadat was assassinated. He was kind of high up in the rankings. And now he's getting ready to go back and plant a Christian church in the middle of there. And I've never seen a man that knows Islam as well as he does and can explain it. Explain it to me, Lucy. Explain it to me like I'm a 6-year-old. And I'm learning that there are really two overlapping, how do I say this? Bob, help me out. It's not two different religions. It's all Islam. But the teachings of Muhammad and one other person within Islam are kind of like the Black Panthers and the Ku Klux Klan. They're both passionate about hating somebody else, but they don't follow the same rules to follow that hate. Because one of the things Mike Ahmed said to me today, and literally I was just talking to him, that's just ridiculous, Mac. He said, the Quran teaches you can pray sitting on a bus, sitting in a chair, quietly in your office. All it says is try to point east, and that's not a necessity. The only necessity is what? Talk to God. That's what prayer is. And so, and I don't know. My wife asked me last night, she said, are you at all afraid for your life? You know, here we are in a very public place. There are no guards that you have to walk by to get here. I don't use guns. I don't carry a gun. Shh. I don't know if anybody else does. I know Ryan's got that AK-47 that he likes to shoot off the roof every once in a while when a plane goes by. But I don't know. I think in my mind, that's where America's going. But this is what I do for a living. This is what God brought me to do. And I'm not going to have a subject that's off limits when I think listeners want to know the truth. You know, and I don't think another radio station in this town or in any other community, especially a secular station, which is owned by a big bean-counting company, is going to allow one of their announcers to over and over and over try to warn their listeners about this Islam. The lady we had on yesterday, what a sweet lady. Couldn't you just see her as your mom or your grandma or you know, one of your best friends at church? And boy, she had a much better temperament than I did.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah. But I just feel so sad for her. I just think she's naive. I think she's lost. I think she's missed the message of Jesus. Jesus did not and was not kind to those people who had a different religion than he did and who were trying to hurt him and kill him. Jesus was all over the Pharisees like, well, just like stink on a bulldog. It's not what I used to say. That's interesting. I naturally stopped before I said what I usually say.
Well, he was good to the, Samaritan woman, and he was good to Nicodemus, who was a Pharisee. I'm just saying there,
But they didn't argue with him on what he was and what he wasn't, right? Nicodemus became his friend.
Sure.
The Samaritan woman became his friend. They did not stand up and over and over and over tell him that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And he would look at them and say, you follow a false religion. You're not...
Well, Caiaphas didn't like him at all and, wanted him dead. And
Caiaphas was part of the group that killed him.
Exactly, yeah. But he didn't hate him or anything like that.
No, I don't think you should ever hate. I think the message of love your neighbor, love your enemy is powerful, but I will love them to death. I don't know.
Well, it brings into the question, is there any moral war then? Do we, as the United States, as a sovereign country, ever have the right to defend the sovereignty of our borders in our country? I mean, we obviously, if it wasn't for World War II and the Allies, we'd all be doing the German high step, Bob.
Well, the good news is, I was just going to lie. I was going to say the good news is our government's got our back, and we'll make sure we're taken care of. But it's our government right now that's putting this fear of God into us.
Yeah, you can't lie. We're on the Truth Network.
I know. I can't do that. All right. So a little bit later on, Luke Timm will be here. We're going to talk a little bit about because I think here's what he said. Let me get this off my super powerful Truth Text Service Legends talk line text. Hold on, I'll find it. I've got my thing. All right, so I said I want to talk about what happens when Sharia law takes over America. He said, 1, it's not going to happen. 2, we aren't a Christian nation. 3, there are a lot of laws that currently reflect several different religions. And 4, immigration is a good thing that always makes our country stronger. So I don't think this cowboy and I are going to agree much on this.
I doubt it. I probably won't be the only one in a disagreement.
So the other thing he wanted us to do is he wanted us to study, he wanted us to read Revelations 20, the chapter 20, because that's what he wants to talk about today. So I'm going to, after our first break and we come back at 21 minutes after the hour, I'm going to read on the radio chapter 20. It's a short chapter. Chapter 20 of Revelation, and you're welcome to read along with me. I'm going to be using the New Living Translation. I guess I could use any translation you want. I guess Frank would like me to use, what is that?
King James Version.
Yeah, that outdated one.
What I grew up reading.
You know what I grew up doing?
What?
Never mind. Sometimes,
you better.
Sometimes you just got to change, Frank. You got to grow up with the times.
The Living is easy for many people to understand.
The one I've got.
Is that what you said? The Living Translation.
Yeah. And the reason I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to different translations, to be honest with you. The reason I like the application Bible, and I've got 3 of them, is because of all the notes that it has down here, or down at the bottom of the
commentary.
Page. Here we've got the worship of angels, and here we've got the 1,000 years, the millennium, and these are all things talked about in the book, the chapter that we're currently reading. And then it's got like this explanation text at the bottom, and I need that. I really do. What are you looking at?
We have a chat comment. It says the.
Who's it from first?
Bill W.
Okay.
It's not outdated. King James Version is still the best.
Well, that's nice you have that opinion.
Well, Bill, I'll have to give you that $20 I owe you.
Just like elbows, everybody's got one. All right, so we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to read Revelation 20, and then Luke Timm should be in. Well, wait, though. Yeah, we're going to read Revelation 20, but when Luke Timm first comes in, we're going to talk about the Muslim thing. And then later we'll get to Revelations if we get. And Luke Timm has given Frank permission to disagree with him. I mean, put that camera on Frank. Can you see the froth around
What
his
have
mouth?
you asked for?
He's like a rabid dog right now. All right, we're coming back live here on The Truth with Max World on 99.3.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Did I say 21 minutes? You know, 21. Frank, let me ask the biblical expert over here. Is the number 21 significant anywhere in the Bible? I mean, we know 7 is. We know 12 is. We know 3 is. But are there any 21s of 21 tribes, 21 sins,
I don't think
21
so.
commandments?
I'm not sure.
21 days of fasting, or okay?
Well, when the angel Gabriel was sent to speak to Daniel,
Here we go. Angels.
No, well, just saying.
All right, I'm listening.
He was on a fast.
The the king of Persia withstood Daniel for 21 days.
That's true.
The king of Persia withstood the attacks of Daniel for 21 days.
Yes. Gabriel and Daniel was trying to push forward the restoration of Jerusalem in 457 BC by King Artaxerxes.
Guy, listen, if you're listening to this, you really need to know this. First of all, you don't have to trust me. But I've got my hand on my Bible, and I'm not going to tell a lie on the Bible. Frank did not know I was going to ask him that. He does not have a Google in front of him or a phone. that he has that kind of information in his head. Do you understand how scary it is to work with him?
Anyway, King Artaxerxes had withstood, he was called the King of Persia, withstood Daniel for 21 days to go forward with the decree to restore Jerusalem. And he had withstood Gabriel and Daniel's efforts for 21 days until Michael the archangel came to the aid to influence him, give him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Well, okay, it's not important anymore because now it's 23 minutes after, but that was good. I like that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read Revelation 20 because that's the homework that Luke Timm wanted us to do. And he's going to come on in a little bit, but we're going to talk about the Muslim situation first. And then we'll talk about Revelation 20. So here it is. I'm going to read it. It's the New Living Translation, Red Letter Edition, the application Bible that I have here to my left. Chapter 20. Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven with the key to the bottomless pit and a heavy chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, that old serpent, who is the devil, Satan, and bound him in chains for 1,000 years. The angel threw him into the bottomless pit, which he then shut and locked, so Satan could not deceive the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were finished. Afterward, he must be released for just a little while. Verse 4. Then I saw thrones, and the people sitting on them had been given the authority to judge. And I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their testimony about Jesus and for proclaiming the word of God. They had not worshipped the beast or his statue, nor accepted his mark on their forehead or their hands. They all came to life again, and they reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. This is the first resurrection. The rest of the dead did not come back to life until the 1,000 years had ended. Blessed and holy are those who share in the first resurrection. For them, the second death holds no power, and they will be priests of God and of Christ, and they will reign with him 1,000 years. Verse 7, the final defeat of Satan. When the 1,000 years came to an end, Satan will be let out of prison. He will go out to deceive the nations, called Gog and Magog, in every corner of the earth. He will gather them together for battle, a mighty army as numberless as sand along the seashore. And I saw them as they went up on a broad plain of the earth and surrounded God's people and the beloved city. But fire from heaven came down on and attacked the armies and consumed them. Then the devil who had deceived them was thrown into a fiery lake of burning sulfur, joining the beast and the false prophet. There they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. Verse 11, the final judgment. And I saw a great white throne, and the one sitting on it. The earth and sky fled from his presence, but they found no place to hide. I saw the dead, both great and small, standing before God's throne. And the books were opened, including the book of life. And the dead were judged according to what they had done as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead, and the death and the grave gave up their dead. And all were judged according to their deeds. Then death and the grave were thrown into the lake of fire, and this lake of fire is the second death. And anyone whose name was not found recorded in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. Here endeth chapter 20. So that's what he wanted us to read. That sounds like pretty spooky stuff to me. And this is all a dream John's having, right? God revealed this to John.
A vision.
Vision, revelation.
A revelation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between a revelation and a dream?
Well, you can receive revelation through a dream. Revelation is when something is revealed to you, something that you did not know.
I would suggest a dream is when you're asleep, in a sleep state, and a vision is when you're wide awake and you go into some sort of a eye-opening. You're conscious, but you're going into a vision state.
See, that's what that was one of the different answers I got when I shared with pastors my whatever it was, my dream, my vision, my revelation, whatever it was. And for those of you that don't know what that is, I'll share it with you. And it's not a big deal. Well, it's a huge deal to me, but this is just how it worked for me. I'm not special because of this. Okay? Not at all. I don't think I received anything that anybody on the face of this earth can receive if they want it as bad as I did. But very quickly, I was a God guy for whatever age you think you can understand there's a creator. So is that 5? Is that 10? This happened when I was 50. So whatever number of years you want. But I was a God guy. I grew up in church. I loved church. I was an Episcopalian. I was an altar boy. I was the one in my family that wanted to go to church. And if my mom and dad, for some reason, weren't going to go, well, I got there on my own. Rode my bike, whatever it took. And I grew up asking God, what do I need with Jesus? If I've got you, the Father, what do I need with the kid? It's not like daddy's running the company. He's going to hand it over to the kid, and I better be good with the kid. Better kiss a little behind, or I'll be out the door. You're God. And when people would ask me, well, are you a Christian? I would say, heavens no. What a silly thing. Those people are weird. I'm an Episcopalian. I know. I understand. Foolish. I understand. Nothing you can say to me about me back then will offend me or that I'll disagree with. I was a rotten son of a gun. And then when I was pressed even more about a relationship, first of all, relationship? The heck are you talking about, relationship? I got enough problem with a relationship with my employees or my wife or my kids. I don't need to think about a relationship with who? And every once in a while, when you really push me, and Bob, I think you witnessed this because you were on with me before this all happened. I would take my right hand and I'd put my fingers kind of like what do they call that?
I'm tight.
Yeah, well,
crossing your fingers.
Crossing your fingers. I'd look at people and say, I don't need no stinking Jesus. And every time I said that, my little boy's mind would go back to when I was standing in a black outfit with a red and white what over me, and I'm an altar boy, so whatever the altar boys wore. And I heard one time, and it was to my left, I'm back in the back, and the priest is out front preaching, and he preaches the fact that nobody's going to get to the Father without me. And I remember thinking, well, that's silly. I got to figure it out. I don't need no stinking. I can get right to God. And then on July 10th, July 20th to August 8th, July 20th of 2011, I woke up in the middle of the night, and my dog is howling like I've never heard him howl since then. I thought I had weed my pants because there was just a lot of water, but it's in the middle of the summer too, and I would sweat. And I had recalled this vision or this dream, or I don't care what you want to call it. I know what was there, and I'm running to the light. Kind of think of what's that movie, Frank? Da 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 da.
Oh,
They're running on the beach. Anyway, I'm running on the beach, and I'm running to the light, and I know what the light is. The light is God. And I'm going home because I had said for years and years and years, I wish God would just take me home. I hate this rock. I hate this life on this rock. It's a terrible rock. People are horrible to each other. And I can't imagine why anybody would ever want to live a full and long life on this rock, this planet. And right before I get to that light, a hand slides in from my right and wags its finger at me 3 times and said, I don't know you. And that was it. And I spent the next till August 8th talking to every pastor and priest and preacher and godly person I could. And I'd share that with them. And I said, what does that mean? What does that mean? And nobody knew for sure. A couple people were very convinced it was a revelation or it was not a dream. But they all agreed on one thing, that I better ask God for a relationship with Jesus. And therefore I did. If I was not speaking out loud, I was thinking to myself, God, give me a relationship with Jesus. God, give me a relationship with Jesus. I would go to bed thinking that, and I would wake up thinking that. God, give me a relationship with Jesus. And I thought for sure, because I had been such a blasphemer, such a bad man, that he'd probably wait till the very second of the last breath I was going to take, and then he'd grant me salvation, and boom, he'd take me home. But I'd live 30 years as a rotten sinner not having a relationship with Jesus.
Do you wonder why it was distinctly 3 times the finger was wagged at you?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe the mark of the Trinity?
I don't know. Could be. I just remember it was 1, 2, 3. Like windshield wipers, 1, 2, 3. And on August 8th, at a little after 6 in the morning, I'm listening to R.C. Sproul on our radio station, and R.C. Sproul says, hey, God guy. And he quotes John 6:44, that God will woo you into a relationship with Jesus. And then he said the magic words, they are one in the same. And I somehow thought, I knew what the Trinity was. I was raised in an Episcopalian church, Catholic church, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I don't know where that came from today. I had no intention of talking about that, but there you go. Luke Timm will be in just a few minutes, and we're going to talk a little bit about the differences he and I have on the Muslim faith, and should we be afraid here in America that Sharia law will eventually take over. And then after that, Revelation 20. That's what we're doing today, and I'm so glad you're with us here live on The Truth in Mac's World.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
if you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
"22 minutes before the top of the hour, 3:38. On the 5th day of February in the Lord's year 2016, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and this is Mac's World, the Friday edition. I like that music, Ryan. That's kind of funky. Hey, baby, got a groove going on here. All right, Luke Timm from Living Faith Lutheran Church is here, as he always is, hopefully about once a week or so. And we talk about different topics, and our main topic today is the book of Revelation, chapter 20. And if you have just tuned in, I did just read that out loud, but if you've got a chance to read it between now and a little after 4 when we start talking about that, if we ever get to it, that's our plan, Jan. That's our plan. But first, I think I sent you a text that said I want to talk a little bit about this thing going on at the University of Iowa, and which kind of goes into is Islam once again, as it has in every other single country it's invaded, began to change the law and the culture. And I think your answer was, let me get it right here off my text, because as you know, I always save your text for as long as I possibly can, because I consider it just
evidence,
holy grail. Obviously, you spoke this into your, you didn't type it in.
No, I use a lot of voice to text, so no, I did not type that.
1, it's not going to happen. 2, we aren't a Christian nation. 3, there are a lot of laws that currently reflect several different religions. And 4, immigration is a good thing and always makes our country stronger. All right, so let's tackle the first one.
Well, hang on. Let's also point out to everybody listening that you like to prepare me for these topics by giving me like an hour heads up. Hey, we're going to talk about Sharia law.
No. This was. Let me see. I was coming out of the shower, so this was about 9:30.
I didn't need that image, but thanks.
That was 9.
There's a timestamp on here. Look at when it was.
Well, you texted me back at 11:17.
Yeah, which means I read it at about 11 o'clock.
About 9. You got it at 11?
No, that's when I read it.
Oh, well, I can't help it when you read it. I sent it to you. But okay,
it's fine.
All right. Well, no, that's fine. I would love for you to say, Mac, I don't know enough about that to discuss it.
I know enough about it to discuss it because it's my opinion. So
yeah, but is it just because it feels good, or do you actually have facts to back it up?
Yeah, I think I've got enough reason and understanding and facts to back up why.
So if we look at Europe, France, Germany, so many other countries. In fact, we talked with the Swedish reporter.
Right.
They're actually letting in 10,000 Syrian refugees because they're not having many babies. The Swedes aren't anymore.
Right, yeah. Germany's the same way. Yep.
Yeah, and so they need to have immigrants to come in and multiply and, get the country going.
Right.
So, all right, go ahead anyway. I interrupted.
No, that's all right. So I think that one of the big differences between our country and what you're seeing in Europe is that one of the pillars of who we are is this melting pot. I mean, that's the point, is that we are so many different cultures, and each and every one of those cultures has had a similar trajectory over time, where you arrive and off of the boat you build these little burrows, if you will, like in New York. I remember when I was in St. Louis, there was this place, Little Italy, where y'all go and get awesome Italian food, and it was Little Italy because that's where all of the Italian immigrants moved and went to one place. Mm-hmm. And they set up their own small individual mini culture, but over time that does sort of deteriorate and it kind of leaks its way out. So it's hard to find those places anymore in many cities. You can still find little Chinatown or something like that in a lot of different places, but that's the idea of part of what it means to be an American and have our country the way it is that these other cultures come in. And absolutely, there are differences, and we will trip and stumble over them. but over time, it's always proven to be healthy for the country as a whole. So that's my take on it.
Okay. I appreciate the history lesson. Can I also give you a history lesson?
I love one.
That's not the case when Islam comes into a country. And we see that in Germany. We see that in France. We see that all across Europe. That every time the Islamic State comes in, there is a tenth of them. That's the average. I get this from an Egyptian, by the way. Mm-hmm. There's a tenth of them who read, this is the way he says it to me, they read Leviticus and take it seriously.
Yeah, so if you recall, there was an awesome video on Facebook a while back of, I think it was Christians in France, but I'm not sure. It could have been France or England. Maybe it was England. And they were doing a march through this area that had been populated mostly by people with a Muslim background, and they were shouting and trying to kick them out and telling them to go away and cursing and swearing and touting their own culture. And you could also, by the way, watch a musical called West Side Story, where that is the story of New York in our own history, where we had this similar thing where these people couldn't associate with those people because of race and cultural differences. And they did yell at each other, and they had an awesome knife fight. It was fantastic. The choreography was great. If I ever get in a knife fight, I know how to do a two-step and a swing, dance, duck, and stab, right? So like this is part of our own culture. This is what it is to be an American. Absolutely. We are going to struggle, and there are going to be tough things that happen. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. What I'm saying is that this does happen, and it has been the history of our culture. And I think our culture is different, too, because we're set up that way. We don't have a singularity of culture like many of those other European cultures do, where you have these Western European countries that are very myopic, and then you have a single large influx of one other culture. That's a different story from our own, which is very much not myopic. I mean, we are a very diverse group in general.
So what I'm hearing you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What I'm hearing you say is America's different than France or Europe or any of those countries that have had an influx of Muslims, and all of a sudden there has been terrorism, and then in certain places Sharia law is voted in, and before you know it, there are entire communities where the police won't even go into.
Right.
You're going to say that's not going to happen to us.
Well, I would say it's happening to us, but it's oftentimes not Sharia law and Islamic people. There's a huge case down in, was it Alabama? There was some senator. I hope somebody looks this up and tells us who it is.
Jeff Sessions?
Oh, is that who it is? Who said to throw bottles and bricks at police officers?
I don't know.
Like he was the governor or something like that of a major. Anyways, we have that where police won't go into areas, but it isn't about Islam and Sharia law. It's about African American culture in certain places and racism.
Frank, go ahead.
Let me give you a practical example of something that happened in my life and see if it relates to this at all. In our denomination, we had a Thursday night basketball situation where we had some church guys get together for exercise and fellowship on Thursday nights. And we had about maybe 15 guys coming, and some guys started inviting some guys, and other guys started inviting guys. Pretty soon we had about 40 guys coming to the situation. We had so many guys. We had a small gym, so we had to, have numbers of games, rotate teams in and out. That's beside the story. But the point got to be the games started getting so competitive that a lot of the church guys stopped coming. And it got down to the point where there was about 3 church guys coming, and there was 40 guys coming per Thursday night. So there was about 35 people from, outside the church. And the games were getting very, very contentious. So the point, and then the ultimate icing on the cake was a guy left one night, and the one guy that was responsible for inviting most of these guys quit coming. And it was guys that he was inviting that was inviting other guys, and somebody said, "Hey,
20 seconds.
Thanks for coming." The point is, pretty soon the host started feeling like the guest. Does that relate to this story? Because we're the hosts in the country, and pretty soon we're going to be the guests in our own country.
No. No, I disagree. Number one, I think it's far more complicated than 35 of your friends who play pickup basketball. And we're talking a much more complicated situation than that. And I don't necessarily agree that we're the host.
Okay, we're going to take our break. We'll come back. We'll have this conversation. You can chime in 244-0077. Live here on The Truth, 99.3.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for the opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
Ten minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News. And then, after that, Luke Timm from Living Faith Lutheran is in. And we are eventually going to get to Revelation 20. That's the plan, but we won't until we get this thing figured out. Bob Montserrat is in front of the Service Legend Truth text line, and we've got a text for Mr. Timm.
Luke Timm, we can't grow money on trees, and we can't pull jobs out of our butt. We don't need more illegals or Muslims. Our economy can't take it.
Right. Well, I agree. I've pulled nothing out of my butt today, at least. So I'm on board with that. But I think that the influx of people who are dedicated workers is actually something we're underutilizing. I mean, you think about it right now. We talk about the border being porous, and to an extent that is true. But we also have this whole community of people who are just absolutely going through it, right? To get into this country illegally is not a small thing. So you've got people who are willing to put everything on the line, who are willing to run, hide, and work their tails off to make money. And they're not these lazy people. I mean, they're not people who are here by any other means than their own ingenuity and willpower.
Some of them.
But it isn't easy to get here, right?
But you are describing some of them. I'll give you that. But it's not all of them.
Well, the whole population is not all of them. But my point is there's this huge resource, I think, of people who are very, very creative and very hardworking. And their ingenuity is something that we're missing out on. We ought to tap into that.
What do you think the percentage of illegal immigrants that come into this country are of the nature that we should fear them? They're just a bad seed.
I don't think we fear any immigrants.
None.
And I'll tell you why. Because
that's one of the most naive statements. So if I gave you a bag of grapes and there's 100 of them in there,
right,
and I told you, enjoy these grapes, now one of them will kill you.
Right.
You'd give the grapes to your kids and say, just don't eat the one.
No, what you have here is a false premise, because what you're assuming is that there's any bag of grapes with one that won't kill you. Look, there's been 2 shootings in my neighborhood in the past 12 months.
Yeah.
And none of them were immigrants.
That's not my point.
Well, your point is on a false premise. Your point is on the false premise of taking this population of immigrants and saying, yes, and in some of them there are people who are bad.
Right.
Every population, that is true.
Okay.
Do you advocate,
so every population, we should take out the bad apples.
Do you?
Yes.
All right. Then why are we singling out immigrants as the one we really have to focus on?
Do you advocate an open borders policy?
No.
Well, we let in a little over 1 million legal immigrants into the country a year. How many more do you want?
And I'm sure none of them are bad, right? Because they filled out the paperwork correctly. That means they're not.
We're not saying that.
Going to be evil.
Okay, you're at home, you and your wife, your children, and somebody comes over and they invite some friends, and they invite some friends, and they invite some friends, and pretty soon they're using up all your showers and towels and food and all that stuff.
Again, your analogies are so
no, they're not.
sophomoric.
No, they're not. Because at what point are you going to put your foot down and say, I'm the host here, I'm not going to bring
no more?
You know what
point I'll do that? I'll do that the day that I declare my house to be a sovereign nation.
Let's go to the phones, 515-240-0077 or 0077. Connie, you're live in Mac's World. What you say?
Oh, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking my call.
You bet. Thanks for calling in.
Absolutely. Luke, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'd like to challenge your premise that you had mentioned before the break. You said that you're not sure that we are the host. And while your opinion is good, we all have an opinion, right? But frankly, if we're going to come together as believers, we need to reference what the Lord our God has said. And as we all know, Israel was given to God's people because God gave it to them. And when they were ordered to go into the promised land, there were people in there that had to move out. These were human beings like any other human being, but they were squatters on the land, so to speak. Similarly, in this nation, when we got here, it's for a purpose, and it's important. What is that purpose? It is to spread the good news about Jesus Christ. That's why we're all, saved, really, to love the Lord our God. And
cell phone went out.
Cell phone out. But I think her premise is that God gave America to us. This was the land for religious freedoms, and we are the host.
Yeah, so
the government is the host, and the government is we the people.
Yeah, so here's my...
And just so you know, you can't get elected in this country if you're an illegal alien.
Right.
Right? Okay. So the illegal alien isn't represented in the host. Right. So there's a separation there.
So let me first respond to the caller, then I'll get back to what I meant by I don't think that we're the host. So the first thing is what was just spoken over the phone is something it's called Zionism. It's a mentality that we can simply take from Scripture the application of God's word to the Israelites and transpose that to American culture, which is entirely an inappropriate reading of the Bible. Number one, and number two, it wasn't that the people there were squatters on the land and that God drove them out. I mean that's also a misreading of the Old Testament in general. Also, you got to understand, God didn't give us this country. I mean, that is a simply false premise. To make that assertion, you have to either have had that by direct revelation, like God spoke it into your head, or you have to find it somewhere in Scripture.
When God dropped hailstones the size of basketballs on some of Israel's enemies, you don't think that was pushing them out?
No, what I'm saying is the manner in which she quoted that of the people there being squatters. I think that is a misreading of the Old Testament. But I don't want to get sidetracked on that rabbit trail. Okay, so the second question is about what I said. I don't think necessarily we're the host. Here's why. I think that's a poor method of understanding the situation as host and guest. Just like Frank's really bad analogies of our country is just really like a basketball game, or our country's like my house when I'm having a Super Bowl party because we invite some people over and then more people come over. Look, our country is you can't boil it down to a simple and plain analogy of it's like I'm a host and a guest comes over who's uninvited. That won't carry the weight of the situation is what I'm saying.
How about some are citizens and some aren't?
Absolutely. No, I'm not arguing that, but let's toss an analogy out of host and guest and understand what we are as a country, not relegated down to the simple analogies that we can end up fighting about, but rather let's understand our country in the context and the core understanding of the melting pot spirit that our country is supposed to be about.
Right. And would you agree that there are real, and I got to watch my time here. In fact, I'll just stop and we'll come back to this after we get done with the news, because I don't want to ask you a question and not give you enough time to answer it, because you like to run around the base so long until you finally, hopefully, land an answer that somehow makes sense. And there it is right there. And that's okay. You're a pastor. I get that you do that. As a talk show host, we like to be quite direct and quite factual. And that's why we call this The Truth. And we thank you for listening to it. I'm J. Michael McCoy. If I haven't told you lately, thanks for listening. I love this job, and I couldn't do it without you. We're coming back. A little more talk on America. And then Revelation 20 right here on The Truth.